The first thing I do is keep everything in Follow Up Boss. For you guys to know that Follow Up Boss does hold files. So off to the bottom right, if you guys didn't know, hold your files there. It's there forever, and it's so easy to find, so much easier to find. Let's see. Now I gotta open up the whole thing again. Okay. So the first thing I do is I go into Follow Up Boss. I pull up the guy's name, Todd Warda. or
Todd Warda.
Warda.
Oh.
And
Would you just reboot your laptop?
yeah, for some reason, from walking from here to here, it shut it down. Okay. So the first thing I do is I grab information, and if you can see all this information off to the right, I'm pulling all his stats. And so one of the first things I do is I pull up Zillow, and I save it. I take a screenshot of it. It kind of gives me a benchmark as to know where this thing should land. It's not, Zillow is not the accurate of all accurates. It's an algorithm that doesn't necessarily work all the time. It works great in subdivisions that have been mass built by one builder, or cookie cutter subdivisions, we know it. But what I'm looking at is Todd's range goes from 580 to 728 with a Zillow estimate of 644. I use that as a template for a benchmark only, because that's just, it's an algorithm that doesn't necessarily always factor in the human factor, so I take that with a grain of salt. So we take a look at that, and then I store it down below. And then I find his previous MLS, which is 1154 Lake Valley Drive. Then I also grab Remind. Remind will grab all his information. I do that, I grab information at a couple different places, because the MLS, if you find a previous MLS listing, that agent is keystroking in. So if he keystrokes, how many times have you guys looked at things and the agent all of a sudden makes that square footage grow from the previous listing? And I'm like, how did that happen? I know trees grow, but that's a little bit odd.
David, can you go back and show them how you put the files in Remind?
Oh, sure.
Or in Follow Up Boss? Because that was kind of cool to see.
Sure. So the nice thing is once I get Remind, and then BSNA is also another platform that pulls up information and then the taxes. When I want to add a file, I just click on Upload File. And then I pull in whatever file I want, and it'll grab it, and it'll go to where I want it to be.
Very cool.
So as we go back to, let's see if I can find Todd's.
Master negotiator.
Wow, Todd, what a good deal, 375.
Master negotiator over here.
Sorry guys, I had all this up, but now it's.
Did you get any seller's concessions, Todd?
That's a good time to buy. Yeah, 15 plus.
Okay. Obviously, I wanted to find one thing from Todd's. So, let me just see if I can find it one more time. Just do it like this.
How long had you been on the team before you bought that, Todd?
Holy moly. 4 years?
4 or 5 years.
Okay. Just do this, this.
What are you doing right now, so we know?
Okay, so I had this beforehand, guys, and I'm sorry. I'm highlighting the areas of value. So when we look at things, there's parts of the house that will add value, subtract value. And we got to think about this, how we look at things. Basically, we're going to come around to who's going to be buying this house. And the odds of somebody buying this house for cash is probably going to be a lot smaller than that of someone that's going to be doing some kind of financing. So if we're going to go into the financing pool of this, where 90% of it's going to happen, we need to look at the values that will change the value of this house when we look at comparables. So if we're looking at comparables, we want to measure an apple to an apple. So how we do this is we look at comparables that are similar to the things that will change the value. And if you take a look at some of these things, you're gonna look at Crooked Lake, the year built, the bedroom count, the bathroom count, the square footage, the garage size, and the acreage. Some other things may come into play, like for example, another thing that adds value is the basement. It's a finished walkout. So those are the things that I'm concentrating on when I'm looking at other comparables. I'm using those little utilities, so those little features, to compare as an up or down factor for the value of when I evaluate the house. So as I come in and look at these, I pull up my comparables, and if I can find my comparables, it might take a second, but
David, how much value does the basement add?
well, that's a great question, because when we look at values for basements, you got to remember something. It's always best to buy a house that somebody else did the finished basement, because a finished basement is going to cost a lot more than what you get back out of it. So if somebody ever says, I think I'm going to add value to my house, I'm going to finish my basement and then sell it, and I'm going to say, look, you're going to put $30,000 into it, and you'll be lucky if you get $15,000 back out from an appraiser. An appraiser is always the guy that's going to dictate what the true value is if we have to go through an appraisal. If we go through cash, it's irrelevant. So how we look at these, we look at them as let me see. It's really irritating walking from there to there and losing everything, so sorry about that.
It's okay, the next appointment that is coming in to present to me is in 30 minutes, so you're good.
Well, that's fine, we got plenty of time.
Tier 3 pages.
Okay, so what we want to look at is this. When I start looking at comparables, you're going to see all these different things. I put in the features, the same features that if you guys want to take a look around, similar features that I've got highlighted in here. Now, the more features you plug in, the less results you're going to get. So stay away from certain things, but bedroom counts are great to look at. Lakes are great to look at, because obviously lakes mean a totally different thing if it's on Lake Fenton or Crooked Lake. Totally two different values. And so as we get set up, let me just pull up my comps that I had so graciously.
Can you go to criteria real quick?
Yes.
Let's see how you search that.
Okay, so I went in, I used Google, I used my Zillow to go between 600,000 to 800,000. I left all these open. I hit residential. I hit less than 3,500 because Todd's house is 2,900 square feet. And then,
But
go ahead. And then waterfront, yes.
isn't Todd's 2,900 square feet total not above grade?
Todd's is
29
Above grade. yeah.
is above grade
3,000
2,900
square
square
foot ranch?
feet.
Nice. So
Yep.
you have like 6,000 square foot finish?
Yep.
Yes.
So here's the
Nice.
thing.
Big time.
You got to remember, the more you put in, the less results you're going to get. So if you put in too many results, too many features in here, you're going to get zero. So it's not going to give you any kind of template. The most important thing in here is on the waterfront. You don't want to measure a non-waterfront to a waterfront. Also, we want to stay in the districts of Fenton, Lake Fenton, and Linden. And what I usually do is I look until I see a comfortable match down here where I can start dissecting. If there's 103 matches, are you going to go look through 103? No, that means that you still got pretty wide area out. So you just keep reducing until you find the right one. For example, if you said, I want it to have a garage, still it's going to keep it 27 matches. If I hit basement, yes, it takes it down to 22. So,
Did you specify Crooked Lake on there? No.
no, because if you specify Crooked Lake on there, you're going to get one comp.
I kinda like
And one comp's not going to give you a good result. So,
That's a good question, though. If you're doing Lake Fenton, you would specify Lake Fenton. If you're doing-
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
specify it if you were gonna get the data.
Right, now you got to remember something. Crooked Lake's only about 30 acres.
Right.
And so think about how many homes is 30 acres versus 800 and, what is it, 50 something for
Yeah, 850.
850 for Lake Fenton. You got a lot more houses on Lake Fenton than you do on Crooked Lake, and so that's an apple to an orange. So we have to really
How much
consider
do
the
you think
lake.
value changes between a no wake lake versus all sport?
100%.
No.
Crooked's
Oh.
How much does the value
How
change?
much
Oh, how much does the value change?
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Because Crooked Lake's a no wake lake.
No, it's an
Yeah.
awesome question, but that's like, how much is the price of a car? Well,
Yeah.
what kind of car?
Right.
You know, and then you say, okay, Corvette. Okay, what kind of year Corvette? So you're going to get down to the nitty gritty details, so you can measure this thing almost identical to identical. If we're going into a subdivision where the same builder built the 1,100 square foot house, 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath ranch built in 1980, and there's 30 of them in there. How easy would that be to find a comparable? If 4 of them sold within the last 6 months, easy. So when you get into this, you have to start thinking a little bit dissection, a little bit differently in your head. And so how we do this is we come back and we look at these comps. And so,
They're all all
And
sports leagues though.
your criteria again, how far did you go out, David?
6 months.
Said 365.
This one is 365. Because I did this comp for Todd a little bit ago, and I don't know if there's a couple in here that maybe just a touch over 6 months, but they were really good when Todd and I met, and so I tried to find those again to duplicate what we have today, and it still has some merit to it. So let me just go back in because this thing didn't want to cooperate. I'm going to pull up Christ. Pull up.
Notice that how he's done his homework. He's arrived at the appointment and he knows exactly what he's looking for. He's not arriving at his appointment cold and like, oh man, I only have one comp.
Yeah. Other than not having a laptop that wants to cooperate with me, I'm doing pretty good. So we got Pine Lake Forest, Harbor View. Let me try to find them on here. So I had these. Pine Lake Forest, Harbor View,
Hello.
and Island View. Island View of Pomona. Anybody see Island View?
Yep, right there.
Right. Shit. Thank you. I need new glasses. Really bad. Holy moly. Okay, you got Island View, I want Pomona, and Harbor View.
Now, because I'm trying to teach the room, right? You're talking about these things, why are you selecting those?
Because when I pulled these comparables are all smaller lakes, not all sports lakes. There's a couple in here, like Loon Lake. There may be one in here that's on Loon Lake. Yes, sir.
You know those by the names of the streets, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Like,
Most of
they
them.
don't know that.
Most of them.
So like, maybe some of them know that. But I'm saying like, so you gotta tell us how I can go through and click, okay, Island View, that's not all sports. Harbor View, Malibu Court, that's Lake Fenton. They might not know that, right?
Yes.
So you gotta explain how you're finding that you gotta do that a little differently for them.
I'm more lucky if I can find the.
I think the easiest way to do that would be to go to the map.
So this is what I do. Let me see if I got this. I got Island View, Harbor View, Pine Lake Forest. Okay, those are the ones I want.
Can you go to the map real quick there?
Sure, let me just save these. Okay. So here's what I do. I go to my map and I look at all these. And you see them all come up right here, but you can start looking at things and you can start getting rid of ones. Like anything on Lake Fenton, you really kind of want to get rid of because Todd's Lake is the non-all sports lake on 30 acres, where here we got something totally different. So then what I do is I look at my map and I look at all the ones that are small. Like here's one on Loon Lake that sold for $650. And I did this research yesterday. So don't go in going cold. Go in knowing what the value is, or 90% of what the value is before you even walk in the door. Because it's a lot of, when you're looking at this, you're looking at the lake to comparison with the house and the condition that you're comparing it with, and the house and the current condition. Because if the condition is poor, you have to allocate something different for that. So we come in and we look at this. I go back to my results, and if you take a look at this, there's a lot of these that I will stay out of. Let me just open up my cart for this. These are the ones that I came up with that are kind of similar in nature that I want to talk to Todd and his wife Paula with. Before I do that though, I put in all my notes. Crooked Lake, a very irregular shaped spring-fed lake, 30-acre lake, maximum depth is 42 feet, average depth being 14.7. It's a hard water lake, which means it has a lot of springs in it. Very nature-esque, very picture setting. So you kind of got to know going into what that is. And if you guys don't know where that is, we have an attachment that is in Trello that's about the lakes. if you're gonna be talking about lakes, you better get comfortable with the lakes. If you wanna be the pro on the lakes, you better know everything about the lakes. And so, that's important.
And I
So
will add to that, any Wentworth agent should be a pro on the lakes.
100%, because that's where we're part of. So if we take a look this down, I always try to fill out as much stuff to the left as possible. One of the more important things is to put the spouse's name down here, because I guarantee you, you'll forget it. And so now let's talk, now that I have my stuff, let's go talk to Todd and Paula. And so as we go through these,
Those are really comparable, like really close.
yeah. So what I want to do is share with Todd, and if you guys can see here, if we go back to where we have highlighted, we use this as a measuring device. And so we look at this. I hear this Andy Belson's a little bit of a cowboy, a little crazy, but he's a good agent. He does a lot on the water.
Meredith, come be Paula, so he can,
Oh,
So-
you want me to do something?
yeah, because he's gonna do the presentation on us, right?
Yep.
Bring one of your high top chairs.
That's the closest you're.
Bring a high top chair.
The one she was sitting in, the one
Compare
who's
the exact
Is that a
same
joke
page
about how
to the
short
exact
Paula
same
is?
never. Yeah, can I speak to Paula, please? Remember when I said?
No.
Okay.
I feel like I need to be much smaller to be Paula.
How are you working out, Paula?
Yeah, Paula can't make it, she's working out.
Okay, so the three comps that I want to talk to you guys about, and I really appreciate you letting me come out. Your house is absolutely amazing, and you guys keep it well maintained. That's a key factor for the value, because obviously the higher quality that we come into when we look at a house, the higher price points we can get, and those factors actually help us with other things that I'm going to talk about in the short term. Those things are like getting maybe multiple offers. So multiple offers usually happen best when everything is dialed in. And your house has been totally dialed in. I love your finished basement. I think it's a great spot, not only because it doesn't feel like a finished walkout basement, it feels like a regular part of the house. And it's because of the walkout and the amenities that you did, the kitchenette, the bathroom that you have in there. It's really nice, really well done. And so what we want to do is use that as a comparison, the quality also with measuring out the other parts of our comparables. So does that make sense so far? Okay, so I see you guys ended up buying it in, let's see, you guys bought it in 2015. Okay, so I want to show you three comparables, and how we're going to compare these, we're going to do some adjustments. And so these adjustment factors will vary based on the quality, condition, and location. So we need to take a look at some of these. And one of the ones that I wanted to show you today was Pine Lake Forest. Now Pine Lake Forest is on Pine Lake. It's about on 130 acre. Yep. It's on 130 acre Pine Lake lake frontage with 117 foot of water frontage. It was built in 2004, and your house was built in 1986. And we have a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath. And so if we take a look at some of these features in the house, we see that there's some different attributes to this. And so what we want to try to do is measure how we can compare back and forth. So we're looking at a square footage difference. We're looking at a square footage difference. 29. We're looking at a square footage difference of about 600 feet. So this house is technically smaller than yours. We're also looking at a difference of a year build of 2004 to 1986. Now your fifth bedroom's in the basement, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we want to qualify that as a little bit differently. Anything above grade is usually valued higher than anything below grade. So we're going to just keep this 4-bedroom, and you also have 3.5 baths, which is the same thing. So as we take a look at this house and we look at the condition of the home, and this is the part where I take them through and look at the pictures of the home, and we compare it. And 9 times out of 10 what I do with this is I say, is this house the same kind of quality, better quality, or sub-quality? And so as we go through the house, I actually have the people go, they start looking at it, I'm like, is this better or the same or worse?
Oh, my house is way nicer than that.
Yep, that's what I hear.
Yeah.
I hear that all the time.
My house is a ranch, and I know that the ranches hopefully will sell for more money, correct?
Yeah, absolutely, because if you think about it, ranches are one of the best investments you can buy, because that opens the door out opportunity, because you're thinking about selling, it opens the door for any able-bodied person to come in to buy this. When you start dealing with stairs, yeah, you're gonna take out some of the market. Not all of it, but you know, somebody that has bad knees, other people that have trouble going up and down stairs, that makes a difference. And so sprawling ranch, everybody loves.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we take a look at the pictures and we say, okay, this is very similar in comparison to Todd's house. We take a look at this. This home sold in August of this year for $650,000. And if we take a look at the differences, Todd, you also have a 3-car garage, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So what we kind of take a look at is how we want to measure this is this. And so I'm using adjustment factors like an appraiser would. And as this appraiser comes in and does these adjustments, he's going to account for a difference of the 3-car to 2-car. He's going to account for a difference of the year built, and he's also going to account for the square footage. So we kind of need to go into dialing into what that value is going to be. And so how we look at this is past history of past appraisals. A 3-car garage will give you about $10,000 difference.
This is really important stuff right here.
A 3-car garage will give you about a $10,000 difference. The year built should give you about a $20,000 difference. Now the negative is this. Because he has a 2-car and you're going to a 3-car, that's a plus 10,000. When we're going from 2004 to 1986, that's a negative. And
So what is the difference, like if you ever see it says 1986 remodeled 2019?
we take a look at that very well. Because once you take a look at that, if your house is doing the same thing, built in 1986, built in 2019, I treat that like a 2019.
Okay.
Okay? Because you take out the kitchen, you take out all your cabinets, you take out your Formica countertops, and you put in your granite, and you put in your white, that elevates the value. So that's a condition factor. And so we need to consider that. And so if we take a look at that, the difference between a 1986 to 2004 is about $20,000 difference.
And how did you get that number?
So that's based on an appraiser's format. And so as I look at appraisers' formats over the years, they give different values for the years that the houses are built. So the older the houses back in the 60s, 50s, 40s, they don't give us much difference for year built difference, 20 years difference. As we get closer to current timetables with new codes and building codes and things like that, they're going to give us more value. And so every area gives us a little bit different. Yes?
Is it a number that you've just kind of created in your head over looking at a bunch of appraisals?
Over time, I can figure that out. I can look at that and say, okay, this is about a $20,000 credit.
Got it.
Okay? So if we just did generally, now here's the thing. What our goal is to do is this, is to measure 3 comparables. These 3 comparables will give us, if we average them all out, will give us our target. It's kind of like a dartboard, where we want all of our offers to be thrown as close as possible to the bullseye. And so as we do this, this will then this will actually recalculate what your value should be based on these 3 comparables using an offset of positives and negatives. And so if we take a look at this 3-car of plus 10, the year built of negative 20, that gives us a positive 10. And if we get the 30,000 for the difference in square footage, we're looking at 30, 40, we're back to 30. No, wait, 30, 40, and 40 plus 20 is 20. So we're going to be at $20,000 positive on your house. And that has a lot to do with your square footage. So if we take a look at this, we're looking at $20,000 plus. That tells us this house, comparing to yours, should sell for $670 if we put apples to apples comparison on that. And just kind of let you guys know, I play this differently depending on who the person is. If this person's an analytical person, this is how deep I get into it. If it's not, yeah, then I kind of stay in general. So you got to go with how this person is across the board. If he's an analytical person, if he's an engineer, you have to speak engineer. If these person are feely touchy people, I don't go into too much detail on this. I try to keep it as simple as possible. And so like for this next one, what we're going to do is we look at this one and to keep it as as simple as possible.
So before you switch off, David, do you do any, so that's a, 3/4 acre lot, and Todd's might be less than half an acre? Do you do anything there?
A little bit. Todd's is a .26. This thing is also, that's 3/4. It's a lot, like you said. We may adjust that back down by $10,000 and get it back down to 660. But even if you're looking at,
Water frontage.
Water
Water
frontage.
frontage is huge.
water frontage is huge too. And so we take factors into that. So if we get this thing back down to a 660 number, you're gonna see what these two other comparables will bounce in at.
And are you also comparing Crooked Lake at an equal value as Pine Lake?
That's hard. That's hard to do because you gotta look at this thing and every lake's different. So you kinda gotta, what we're trying to do is find that window and just narrow it. Because if you were to come in and you were to say, yes, I know what your valuation is. Where did my Zillow go? Your house is worth between 580 to 728. When do you wanna sign the listing? Do you guys think you would get the listing?
No.
No. So what all we're trying to do is narrow this thing down in a more broad range of where people are gonna bite on this as much as possible. Because if no fish are hitting, we need to either pick a different lure or just change the price, because you can't move the house.
There he goes with the greatest analogies again. Pick a different lure.
Okay, so the next one we're gonna talk about is Harborview, and I'm doing this a little differently. I'm more talking to you guys than I'm talking to my client right now, but my client that I'm talking to, I'm always looking at and seeing how they're responding. If they're not responding well, I stop, pause. Exactly. I see Todd doing that. I'm like, okay, I need to back off a little bit and relax. So let's just take a look at a couple other comparables real quick. If I can find where I'm at. I apologize, guys. There's a computer getting shut down that really kind of put a kink in it.
You ever have anybody kind of interrupt you
Stomach's
here
house.
and being like,
That's funny.
you ever have anyone kind of interrupt you here and be like, so, like, yeah, this is great. I'm sure you've already looked all this. What does your gut tell you? I mean, what do you think it's worth?
How much is my house worth?
I literally just happened to be my last appointment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
Walked
that.
in, and I said, "Hey, here's my comps, here's my presentation, what's the price?"
Yep, then that's fine, because we can
It's
take
like,
that, but we can take that on Harborview. If you did your research the night before, you can take a look at this and you can see, okay, here's a pattern, 650, 4 bedrooms, 2,600 square feet, 2002. It's on, what lake is this on?
Who's the buyer's
Moon Lake.
agent on this one?
Buyer's agent?
Is it gonna show?
Kevin Bessert? Wait, no.
Listen, you.
Jason Earl?
Oh, 10,000 in seller concessions, Jason.
The other side, have to look at that.
Is that Dom's house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to look at this and we compare it and we go, okay, look, this thing's
Show that.
300 square foot shy. This thing's 300 square foot shy. It's on Loon Lake. Loon Lake is an all sports lake, however, it's a very small lake. And so when we're looking at comparables, we look a little bit for that value. We look at a little bit of this. He's on .86. That technically would bring the number down, but with his 2,900 square foot, we're probably back to 650.
And he's got 75 foot of frontage.
Yep, so we're all doing measurements and swapping back and forth, back and forth. And so this one will come out to about 650 at par value because you're doing a swap from these items, you're swapping this, Todd's is 2,900. So you're getting close to finding an apple to an apple. And so,
He's
Yeah.
appraised at what?
675.
Ooh.
yeah. So there's one. And then the last one we have is Island View. If we-
Let's see, who do you got? Oh, State Bank.
Island View is
Makes
another
sense.
one.
It's president in prison, 800.
This one's obviously on Pine Lake. It's 2,100 square feet. This is a really good comp. It's built in 1976 with a remodel of 2018. So this one to me is more compatible with Todd's than others are. And I also look at the days on market. Days on market tells me a lot because I get rid of any of my comps in here that I'm looking at. What do you think our average days on market is on the lakes?
Well, Lake Creek. Well,
30
right
days
now.
max.
Well, right now.
Under 30 days.
Yeah,
Under 30?
30 days, yeah.
So when you look in your comps and you see something that's been on the MLS for 184, don't even use it. Throw it out because there's something wrong with it.
That's a good point.
Unless you're trying to get
Scroll
it
down, David,
right.
scroll down, David. Go back where it says listing date, right there.
Yeah, 221.
So it went pending and
Mm-hmm.
that was in the spring.
Yes. So we also have to take a very factor for that. And so I didn't print it up, but you know, Todd's little metrics that shows what the lakes are doing and what the areas are doing, you're gonna see that the average days on market is less than 30 days. You're also gonna see that in 2021, we had a spike in value increases. And so we're right now in November, and this was 6 months ago, values increased quite exponentially, I think. And so this one's coming up to about a little over 650, based on those corrections that we would make. And so basically, as we're looking at this house, we're gonna look in, people look in brackets. And so basically, we're kind of looking around a 650 price point. As we look at this price point of 650, we have to think, okay, say it comes in at 637.5. If you average all those three out. Well, how do people look in lakes? They're gonna be looking in $50,000 increments, $25,000 increments. So they're not gonna be looking at 637.5 and less. They're gonna be looking at 650 and less. So you gotta think about, okay, well, can Todd's house go to 675? Because that's the next basic bracket where people are gonna start looking. Or does it need to stay in that 650 bracket? Because if we keep it in the 650 bracket, chances are, because of the quality that you have, the beachfront that you guys have is amazing, and the peacefulness and quiet your house has everything that a buyer would want, other than the all sports lake. However, we can't change that, so we're gonna stick with what we know, and we're gonna look at this and we're gonna say at 650 we have a better chance of getting multiple offers based on his condition, location, and lake than we would at 675. So basically, I'm probing him the entire. It sounds funny, but I'm probing them constantly. I'm constantly probing them for feedback, for information. And sometimes it's not oral or verbal. It's this. It's them leaning forward, leaning back, cutting straight to the chase. Then you know what kind of person you're dealing with.
So what's it gonna be worth in the spring?
Well, that's a great question, Todd. Unfortunately, I don't have that crystal ball factor in here, and there's a lot of factors that will evaluate what your value is going to grow to in spring. A lot of the latest talks that we've been talking about has been everybody's on people's mind is inflation, the cost of gas, the cost of groceries, and other ancillary things that we're talking about in inflation. And what happens with inflation, as inflation increases, people pull back. So you're going to start seeing people pull back. And how do they pull back? They're going to stop buying those ancillary purchases that they like, the boats, the cars, and maybe even thinking about moving. And so right now we know that the interest rates are the most important factor to think about, because once interest rates go up, the value of people's buying power goes down. And so right now we still have quite a bit of people out in the market because the interest rates are low. And although inflation is coming up, the heat is not on us right now. And so I can't exactly tell you what inflation is going to do in the springtime. I can tell you what I know now is that right now the most buyers are out there for the opportunity right now. And if we price it at 650, I believe that we can get multiple offers based on our marketing program of having it list on a Thursday. We go live on Thursday, we show it all the weekend, and then we do our open house on Sunday. We collect all the data, we reach back out to you, and then we report. And so my feeling is this: deal with what you know today. And if this is something that you guys are ready to make the move on, I would highly suggest you start off with the market, because everybody tries to time the market, and I'm a realtor, and I can't even time the market. The market will lend itself to what it's doing based on so many different factors out there. And inflation right now is one of the current factors that's going to be up and coming. And once the Fed starts raising interest rates, your buyer pool is going to shrink. And we don't want that. We want to maximize your value. So if you're looking at making a value right now, we know that the value is going to at least go to 650, maybe even more. However, in the springtime, it could be a totally new game plan. Obviously, we can do whatever you want, but I'm going to always keep you updated as we go.
What about listing like in the winter?
You know, listing in the winter is kind of interesting because a lot of people pull back. But what you got to remember is something is this: there's only so many lakes out there, and there's only so many houses that fit particular styles for people. And so because you guys have this ranch and you have this fantastic walkout basement and a 3-car garage, I hate to tell you this, Todd, but that's something that almost everybody wants. I don't know anybody that says, don't want the 3-car garage, I want a 2 or a 1. So you got all these great amenities of high quality and these amenities that are functional, that allows you to keep that market pool open for a lot of buyers out there. And so if the buyers are out there, they'll come.
Okay. Paula and I have been disagreeing about this lately. She wants to redo the bathroom in the basement and all the flooring in the basement.
Well, I looked at both things. My suggestion would be to do this. Your flooring in your basement, why do you want to change your flooring in your basement? Is there a particular reason? Because I thought it looked pretty clean, or are you just tired of it?
I don't know, this is a true story.
Tell me what you.
Well,
Tell me what's in your basement.
It's in my basement?
Yeah.
Or in,
Tell me what's in your basement.
In Paula's basement.
Tell me what's in your basement. Would you
My
change your carpet in your basement?
Yes, I have concrete floors in my basement,
Okay.
so.
Okay. So you're thinking about maybe changing that up. My philosophy is this.
In my basement?
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I looked at the basement. Your basement's totally fine. I believe that we don't put anything into the house that we can't get 100% back out.
Okay.
And so some things you're gonna have to do no matter what. So if your roof was 29 years old and it's a 30 shingle roof, we gotta get a new roof.
Got it.
Because that's a utility. Carpet in your basement, I totally think it's fine. I wouldn't recommend upgrading it because I can guarantee you're not gonna get it back out. And if I thought it was an impediment, I would let you know, and I don't feel that that's impediment. I think worst case scenario, you do a shampoo clean on that, and we move forward. The bathroom, however, I think the bathroom is still okay. The bathrooms can be updated if you'd like. However, it depends on how deep you wanna go. If we're gonna totally gut and replace, you're not gonna get that 15,000 back out, because it's gonna cost you to gut it, replace it, minimum 15,000, if you don't put these really nice upgrades in. And so with that, you're not gonna get that 15,000 back. You might get 7,000 back out, but you'll be lucky if you get that. So I would suggest we just keep moving forward when we get this listing signed.
Good.
So,
Okay. How
based
much
on-
do you charge?
well, that's a great question. We charge the standard rate of everybody out there. I gotta back up because that's a lie, because not everybody does that. Basically,
Yeah, that'll shoot you.
yeah, shoot me in the foot.
Yeah, standard rate's like 2% now, I heard, like with Ideal Agent and all that, right?
Yeah, no. No, we charge 6%. Out of that 6%, 3% goes to another agency that shows it, and 3% stays in our office for my services. So basically, we are cooperating with all the real estate agents out there, so that when we list your house in a couple weeks, you're gonna get text on your phone for showing times, and you're gonna see showing requests from Century 21, Remax, all these other agencies. And most likely, you're gonna see quite a bit from us, because how we work in our system, we have over 35 agents. And so we work as one unit. And so when I can't answer the phone, all the other agents do.
What if it sells in your group?
That's wonderful too. It's still 6%, because we have to pay that agent out 3%, and we have to collect 3% for my efforts. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What if you bring the buyer?
Well, that's great, but we still have
Then it's
procedures. So our system is set up to maximize your exposure. And so if we take anything out, like for example, if you want to, it sounds to me that you may want a price adjustment for my commission prior to even listing it. But if we take any of those, if you want an adjustment in commission, then we have to look at what factors we have to take out of our marketing. Because we invest a lot in our marketing, because it doesn't matter how good your house is priced if the world doesn't know about it. And that's our job, is to get the world to know about your house. And we do that via other things that I'm going to show you in our marketing program shortly.
And there's a couple people that I want to exclude in the listing contract that have expressed interest in coming.
Okay. Were they interested in purchasing, you think? Okay, that's totally fine. When do you think they would be making that decision?
Oh, probably within the next couple weeks.
Okay, why don't we do this? We'll exclude those specific people for this specific amount of time, and if they don't come around, then we just go business as usual. Are you okay with that?
Okay.
Okay.
Does everybody know what that means?
No.
You have like a brother that you're offering the house to
So-
first, right?
Yeah, so that's why I did that, so we can
Mhm.
teach the room about exclusions. So
Mhm.
you're gonna get that in a listing presentation where they may already have somebody that they want to, potentially as interested in the house, and they want them excluded in the listing contract in case they come to buy it. So our efforts did not procure that buyer, does that make
Right.
sense?
How many times do you think that happens? Like, how many times do you think that actually comes to fruition? Probably 5% if you're
Yeah,
lucky.
not many.
So you on a listing appointment, would you offer up transaction coordinator in that instance? Because I would.
Yeah, I would definitely do that. I'd be happy to do that. I'd be happy to do a transaction coordinator for you on that and just put the deal together, make sure
Yeah.
everything's legal,
Yeah.
and get it to the title company.
How much do you charge for that?
Yeah.
Well, that depends on how much work we gotta work with. I mean, I need to take a look and see if this person's qualified, how well they're qualified, who their lender is and things like that. But I'll tell you right now, it will save you money. Typically, it's about 2%. However, we want to look at this thing based on the complexity of the person coming in. Because obviously, if this person's not financeable, it doesn't matter how much I charge. It's just this person's not going to take us where we need to. So we need to focus on not just the money, but we need to focus on the transaction to make it happen for you guys. Does that make sense?
Sometimes what I say in that situation is, guys, you know, at the end of the day, my job is to get you as much money as I can for your house. And so, although you may have a couple people that are interested, I want them to compete just as hard as everybody else. I want to make them pay for it.
Right. Absolutely, I agree
It
with
would
you.
depend.
But Todd, that's my brother.
Your
Well,
brother better have the money because he's going to be competing with someone else.
Right.
You want to leave $25,000 on the table for your brother?
For my brother? No.
Exactly.
Well, some people might.
Exactly.
Well, I would ask them, I would say, well, did you already tell your brother a price?
Yeah.
Yeah, what I'm usually doing is that's just bullshit coming through, and I let it come in and let it go right back out. Stay focused on my task.
9 times out of 10, those people are looking for a deal anyway.
Yeah, exactly. They want something for nothing, and then it ends up getting in a fight. And we usually go into that detail, but I start looking at that person and I start asking questions like that. Well, do you want the most amount of money? Yeah. Well, then let it come to market.
And it matters like what the seller's plans moving forward, right? Are the sellers gonna be buying another house? Is that brother that's buying the house gonna give them 120 days possession?
Right.
A lot of factors there that you'd have to change your conversation on the spot.
Absolutely.
So how long is your contract, David?
Well, that's good news. I don't really put a specified date in my contract. I like to put in, I'm going to show you a little section in our contract that says if seller decides to terminate for whatever reason, your termination fee is 0. And that includes, and I do this, Todd does it a little bit differently, that includes all our marketing, our photos. Now, if you cancel, those photos belong to us and they come back to us. But if there's some reason that you're not happy with our services, I don't want you to be stuck with me for any specific amount of period of time. So basically what we do is we put it on for 3 months, but at any time during that period, if you feel that I'm not doing your right job, you can elect to enforce that part of the contract, and then we shake hands and then we move on. Because the last thing I want you to do is feel pressured by a pushy salesperson, and I'm not that kind of person. I'm more of a consultant with you guys to try to help you guys get 2 things. The most amount of money and the least amount of problems, and get you to closing. So that's how I operate, and I want to open and operate with transparency 100%, and I feel comfortable putting that $0 mark on there because I know my abilities, and I know that if I do my job right, you're going to be very happy with me and recommend others towards me. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, when do you want to sign?
He did a great job. You guys give him a round of applause. He does comparables, and I think it's very valuable. And we have it up there. Jason and I talked about it, like an appraisal value sheet, like how much an appraisal will give you for a basement, for a 3-car garage. You know, so we talked a little bit about that. I think that'll be very valuable as well. I don't think you need to go over the marketing part of it. We all kind of know.
We all know that.
That was very, very helpful.
I didn't know you could add cards like that.
Any questions for David?
I just want to add, I think that, I actually really like the way you did it too. I'm going to steal a lot of that. The only.
Mine was a little clunky because all you guys are in here.
That's all right.
Well, I like the way that your search criteria and stuff, but I feel like the only time where that doesn't work sometimes is in Todd's scenario, when it's a ranch with a walkout. Because I've seen so many times where you have 5 comps and then the ranch with a walkout doesn't make any sense when you look at the price per square foot and all the other stuff. It's just way higher.
It is.
I mean,
it always
the
is.
one that I sold on Lobdell, if you use that as a comparable for other houses on the lake, it wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But it's a ranch with a walkout.
Yeah. So if you did all your market analysis and this thing came in at 660 and you're like, well, if I go down to 650, that's one thing. But if I go up to 675, that's another thing you got to think about. So there's 2 factors that you got to think about. Like, should I go up? Should I go down and hope for multiple offers? And that's something that you have to discuss with your clients. And so I just wanted to show you this real quick. How many of you guys have seen an appraisal? Anybody?
It's
Okay,
really
this-
important to look at one.
Listen, how many of you guys have had an appraisal not come back
At value?
at value? What have you guys done with that?
Very first deal.
Reddit.
What have you guys done with it?
What do you mean?
Oh, appraisal doesn't come in
Look at
value.
the
What
comps.
do you do next?
Look at the comps
Look
they
at
use.
comps, analyze
Okay.
it.
Analyze it. So you guys break it down, right? That's exactly what you do. And so I want to show you just, this is how you start learning. And we could talk about this some other day, but this is how you start figuring things out. And you got to measure it with the same thing. But look at this. This is just something to think about, you guys. My subject comp is 6.16 acres. The comparable number one is 2.33 acres. $20,000 upgrade. It's a plus. Anytime you see a plus in your category, it's a positive for your client. Anytime you see a negative, it's a negative for your client. So just remember that. What does that mean? What is that $20,000? How do you break that thing down so you guys can think about it? What is the price per acre? So if you take 6.16 acres less 2.33 acres, simple math, 4,000 or 4 acres, what's 20,000 divided by 4? 5,000 an acre. Boom. So this appraiser's giving the difference of $5,000 an acre, and that's where your mind starts thinking. Like when Jake said, oh, it's 0.76 to 0.24. That's lake water, which is a little bit more complicated, but when you're not on lake water, it makes a difference. I mean, you can look at quality 4 versus quality 3. That's a negative 25,000. What's Q3 mean? What's Q4 mean? Guess what? There's a definition page in this document that tells you what Q4 and Q3 is. Yeah?
I think it's important to identify what frame we're looking at the appraisal as. Is it as a buyer's agent or a listing agent? A lot of the buyer's agents in here, I don't want them to get confused and think a low appraisal means we gotta get it to come back at value or relook at it, you know what I'm saying?
This one sucks. This one sucks. I sold it for $785. It's listed for $770 right now. Guess what I did? Look at this. Linden, Flushing, Linden, Linden. Which is the bad one? Flushing. Look at this, just real quick. I won't keep you guys. So what he does is this. They do all these adjustments in here, and then it gives you a new net adjustment. So he's going to do a positive net adjustment of $33,000 on this comp number 1. Okay, the new price then becomes $793. What's $793 divided by this guy's square footage of whatever it is up top? 226. 226 a square foot. What did I sell my house for? 233 a square foot. 226 kind of makes sense. What did this come in at? New adjusted price per square foot. 253. What did this one come in at? 185. I know exactly which one is my Achilles heel right now. I need to get rid of this one. So what did I do? I found a new comp. I said, listen, I don't need to replace this one and this one. I need to replace this one. So I asked the appraiser for a reconsideration, and he's doing it right now. Hopefully it'll come.
Not a lot of people have to do what David's doing. You're fighting the appraiser or you're trying to see if they can reconsider it, but it does happen. So my recommendation to you is if that happens to you, go see David. Because
Yeah.
he can help you do that.
Do you take comps to the appraiser?
Yeah.
I never have.
I usually
I do
don't. I
sometimes,
usually
just
don't
depends.
unless it's a difficult one.
Yeah.
And
Hey, I
like,
just found out, I called an appraiser before my appraisal on Blue Water. There's a house that's sold at the end of the street. And he said because it's sold off market, he can't use it.
that's horseshit.
I also had one that they had a wrong
That's where they
comp.
find them at the city.
And I sent it to the appraiser,
That
and the
just makes it
appraiser
easier.
was like, send me the MLS listing that shows me that
Well,
the
no, I
price
told
is
him before he
wrong.
did the
Sent it
appraisal.
and showed him the price was wrong, and he's still
Yeah.
no.
They will.
Yeah.
And that's,
And I think that was pride, but yeah, he had it as the listing price and not as the sold price.
just remember, an FHA
It came in
sticks.
low.
FHA appraisal sticks.
For
So
how many
was it?
months?
It was,
what is it?
4? 3.
3?
yeah.
You should, and you should always know if for sale by owners sold near your listing.
Yeah.
Like if you're going on a listing appointment, because like they're gonna say, oh, well, my neighbor's house 2 doors down sold, how come you didn't pull that one up? Or where's that one? That one sold for $325.
That was 2 years ago.
Or,
you know,
or whatever, yeah,
stuff
so
like
you
that.
should always know if a for sale by owner sold next to your seller, because they're gonna bring it up, for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, we got really deep in the weeds on this, on these comparables. If you were to look at, you got to think about this. Lakes are the most probably difficult homes to comp because you can't comp. How do you comp water?
Yeah.
You know, when it's especially on a different water area. And so once you guys start looking at that in the metrics, you just say, okay, I just got to find a lake that's similar to theirs, and then find comps on that lake. That can be the challenge. But when you're off the lake and you got to find 3 houses in Linden, that's usually a lot easier. So,
I think you did a good job. Again, some confusion, sorry about the time frame, but I'm trying to move everything into an earlier bracket so you guys aren't sitting here at 11:30 till 1 when you should be showing homes or whatever. So 10 o'clock, my apologies, 10 o'clock on Thursdays, it's education time. Give David a round of applause.